like any other person who has been through Chandigarh any part of his life. You always look forward to a day, an opportunity where you can be back in Chandigarh, even if it is for a few hours. I was lucky about a year back when TAI organized mentoring camps with Punjab State Government. I was called upon to be part of that. Though it was a brief stay of about a couple of hours in Chandigarh, I was visiting at that time almost about 8 or 9 years later. I was also excited about the fact that this is one city which is gone for the better. If you look at all the other cities, they are kind of crumbling. Here's a city which is getting better. You could see more bike lanes, you could see more people cycling around and all that. So it's always a pleasure, being back here. Subject of entrepreneurship is dear to me because for some reason I very early in my career got a chance to work with other entrepreneurs, and I realized that eventually entrepreneurship holds answers to a lot of things that we want to do, and I took upon that path early. So I think that's the spirit with which I participate with TAI events across, and wherever city I visit, I try, and first thing to do is I call up a TAI office there and check with them that is there something happening, or can I participate in something. People have been kind to give me those opportunities. So I welcome all of you, to be here. It's exciting, and the way I want to spend next 1.5 hour, 2 hour, whatever time you feel is good, is to actually discuss, how collectively we can address some of the people challenges that we face. I do these discussions in various parts of the world whenever I get an opportunity, formal or informal. More from a perspective that when you initiate a discussion, there's a lot in it for you. So from every discussion I take back far more than I would be able to share. So I have put together a small slideshow which will give some direction to what I have in mind. But that's not the rigid direction. That's not something which has to follow in the way I have put it. Feel free to jump in, discuss. Idea is to talk more about what is relevant in this environment, in entrepreneurship in Chandigarh, HR related issues in Chandigarh, right? Where are you getting people from and where are you losing people to? And if we can gain some learning out of that. Right? I haven't been formally educated in HR. But I personally believe that my physics education gave me ability to then after that understand any subject as much as I wanted. Right, so a lot of credit to the physics department here in Chandigarh. Right, so what I do is I have tried to cover a couple of points. If you allow me, I can straight head into those. And feel free to raise a hand, stop, try to discuss whichever you want to do. Just to give you the way we did it at Lageshar, and I personally believe that out of all the ventures I have participated in, I experimented far more at Lageshar because fortunately we did not raise money for Lageshar, so we had all the freedom to do as many mistakes as we wanted, right? And that allowed us to experiment a lot. For first 18 months, Lageshar did not have an office at all. And we were operating from a barista cafeteria in Chembur, and there was almost a corner which had plug points, etc., which was in some way earmarked for plug HR. And everyone, after a few days, everyone knew that you'll find plug HR managers there. So we used to have people dropping in their resumes to barista guys, saying that okay, when the plug HR guys come, give it to them. It almost became standard. All of our interviews used to happen at barista. Our inductions of employees used to happen at Barista. Reviews used to happen there. And I remember there was a time when we did a 7 o'clock meeting in the morning. And we had no idea that Barista doesn't open at that time. So we landed up and the store was shut. So there is a pavement in front of the store. That's where the team sat. They opened their laptops and we started doing the meeting. Right? So I think that was something which I experimented first time with plug HR, and I realized that as an entrepreneur, today's workforce allows you with a lot of flexibility. So we always talk about flexibility being given to employees from companies. Here was an example of flexibility given to organization by employees, right? Because if I see a couple of years back, it would be difficult to convince an employee to come and sit on a pavement and actually do a review. He will ask you for a nice office, he will ask you for a lot of things. And here was a team which was ready to offer any flexibility to the organization as we wanted. So that was I think great learning for us. Right. So with that background, some of the things which I talk about may touch upon more on the experimental side of what we have learned over the last 5 years than the traditional HR formats and forms and structures. Right. Idea of this discussion is not to really take you through the processes, documents, etc., which are pretty much there online, but more to trigger thought and say, okay, this can also happen in this way. You are who you hire. That's what I'm trying to say in my first slide. You are who you hire. That's true for an organization. I mean, organization end of the day is not about which plan, which business you are chasing. End of the day, it's about which kind of people represent the brand, represent the organization. If you look around yourself and look at the kind of products we buy ourselves, when you walk into a Maruti showroom or you walk into a Honda City showroom, etc., a lot of time your perception of what that organization is gets developed by how you get treated in those organizations, how those people interact with you. So you actually have a fair assessment of if you have a problem, which company is expected to solve it faster, then which company when you say, hey, listen, forget it, there's just no point going, it is going to take a long time. And that perception is actually because of your interactions with people who work for those organizations. So, in some sense, whichever organizations you run, while you think you run it, your consumers doesn't see it that way. A lot of time your consumer doesn't even know who are you. He knows your organization as a name, and then he knows it from the point of view of the person who interacts with them. Right? So when they call you, the person who picks up the phone, based on how she responds or he responds, they figure out which kind of company they're dealing with. And that stays for a long time. Now in a startup, there's an initial advantage. It's that most of the time you are dealing with a customer. So it's an advantage for a short period, but it also makes things very difficult because the moment you switch that responsibility to somebody else, there is a risk of your customer experiencing a huge drop in experience. Right? So that's the biggest risk, because of which then as a founder you remain tied to that role which you were doing all the while, and it's always risky to download it somewhere else. So in that sense, when you hire people, it becomes extremely important. You check that drop in customer experience at the time of hiring, right? And then you realize whether these people will be able to actually carry the brand experience the way you want to build it, right? So that's about who you are, who you hire. It's a question of identity, right? When we built Plug HR, I was already in the HR related space because of Jobs Ahead, and I had a lot of contacts. People knew me in the HR space because our product used to get sold to HR people. So HR people used to know me. So it was again the same thing. Can I hire people who can give the same experience? Right? Because all the clients would want to talk to me, deal with me, etc. And we were very careful in hiring people culturally, and people who will be able to replicate at least at the thought process level, right? What I offer to the customers. Right? So there was enough care to hire similar people. One of the things we had built in Plug HR right from beginning was a concept of innovation, right? This was an innovative concept, and we wanted that fact to remain live. So it was important for us to hire people who have a slight innovative streak in them and an ability to work in a little more unstructured environment. And one of our reasons of continuing with the barista for some 18-20 months was that it was an automatic check of can a person be comfortable in that environment. A lot of people used to not even come for an interview, because they'll find it weird. I mean, why should they go to a cafeteria? Even if they used to come, half the people will drop off after first interview. When we used to tell them that your joining also is going to be here. that saved us a lot of heartburn, because just imagine if all those people had joined us, right? After that, how difficult they would have made our lives. So that check of which kind of people you want to hire, we built in the way we functioned at that time, right? And there were tests which were telling us that you can figure out, you can test who's innovative, who's not. But I wasn't sure whether the test is the right way to do it. Experiential appeared to be the best way. Even today, what we do is we have another concept called checking flexibility, because in our kind of roles, when you go on client sites, demands you need to be very flexible, in terms of your time to respond, time to travel, etc., etc. So we need to check a person's flexibility as well as physical stamina. Now you can't call people and then say, okay, there will be a 100-meter race to check your stamina and all that. Also in Bombay, it's hardly place to make them run. So what we have done is, as part of the recruiting process, if a person lives in Andheri, we make sure that for the first interview we call him to Chandigarh, which is really, it's like little far. It will take the person almost about 2.5 hours to reach. Right? And if the person lives in Chembur, where I live, then I make sure that I know the other side, and I call the person for an interview at Malad or somewhere else. Right? So, and we find people really over the phone also grumbling, saying, "Why you don't have any other place? Can I not come on another day?" Things like that. So we have created, actually it's like a hurdle race, right? When you create a hurdle race because you want a few people to fall, they actually can't cross the hurdle. It's not a real hurdle, it's a hurdle of the mind, right? And it's a hurdle which they will need to cross at their workplace anyway. Right? It doesn't appear like a test, but it is a test. People fall off that hurdle on their own. So we have these kind of small things which we have built in the whole process itself, where we figure out whether the person will be able to work in our environment or not. Right? The person may be really good, but if we can't offer that environment, it's important to get the kind of people who will fit in straight on. So that's again the care we have taken to do it. We have attempted to do a lot of hiring tests, etc. We've had limited success. There were equal amounts of misfires there. So I can't with assurance say that all those tests really gave us what we are looking for. But these things which were homegrown techniques have helped us a lot in identifying. So that's how careful we have been at hiring and keeping. So it's not just hiring. The bigger effort is how do you keep those people? How do they ensure that they be with you all the while? I believe it's a dramatic change in the way we look at organizations, right? Which allows you to keep people. Dramatic change, and that dramatic change is already written in your school books, right? The first thing I did study commerce, so once I was after physics getting into business spaces, I felt maybe it's a wise idea to just pick up some. So I picked up some school books, 11th course books of some commerce stream. I said, let me just try to read what they're studying. Right? And they were trying to explain the concept of a company. So what is a company? And I read that the company is an independent entity, right? It's not you. Right? So it's a third party. It's another entity. You just hold shares of the company. Company is not you. Right? And that's something, so that's the first line I remember, and that served me enough to ensure that when we hire people, and the way I look at an organization, I don't look at an organization as if it's me. I look at an organization as it's a third party. I was the first one to come in, right? Or I was instrumental in forming it. But then everyone who else is coming in has a relationship with the company, right? Which may be different from what I have, but they do have a relationship. It's as much theirs as it is mine. And together we are, custodians of this company and growing it. Now that shift in thought allows me to take a lot of decisions which otherwise might become difficult.
The reverse of this thought, I think about it with this mindset. When you come into a company, you start a startup.
because traditionally companies have grown in a fashion where people who started it, I mean, they have been with companies for way too long. They have been in a similar role that they have been doing right at the founding stage, which might be of a CEO or a managing director or whatever, and they just be there, and because they are unable to find anything else for themselves to do, right? Company keeps the burden of carrying them in that slot, and nothing else happens, right? So one is it's a conceptual clarity. I mean, I'm sure that clarity everyone has, right? Everyone knows that company is another entity, right? But it's just that we don't see it that way, right? There's another flaw I have seen, that people don't even see company as an asset, right? They don't even see it as something which has a value which is separate, and